For years, the story you were told about your family name was simple. Somewhere in a Yorkshire hamlet or a Welsh valley, an ancestor picked up a job title or a place name and passed it on to his sons. Nothing more. But then geneticists at Oxford, Leicester, Trinity College Dublin, and the University of Strathclyde began reading the Y-chromosome, the piece of DNA that travels from father to son, almost unchanged for 1,000 years. And the code told a very different story. 15 British surnames now carry hard scientific and documentary evidence of descent from some of the oldest ruling bloodlines in the British Isles. Kings, Marcher Lords, Norman Conquerors, Sea Kings of the Hebrides. The men behind the surnames on this list did not farm, they ruled. And number 1 is a name that once wore 2 crowns at the same time. Stay until the end. Number 15. Grosvenor. Before there was a Duke of Westminster, before the Mayfair estate and the mansions of Belgravia, there was a huntsman with a Norman French name. The word Grosvenor comes from Le Gros Venor, meaning the Great Huntsman, the title of a Norman noble who crossed the Channel with William the Conqueror in 1066. According to the family's own ancient records, catalogued by the College of Arms in London, Gilbert Le Gros Venor was a kinsman of William the Conqueror himself, and a close relative of Hugh d'Avranches, the first Earl of Chester, one of the fiercest of the Norman Marcher lords. Gilbert settled in Cheshire on land granted directly by the conquering king. His descendants held those lands for 900 years without a single break. Today, the Dukes of Westminster remain among the wealthiest hereditary landholders in all of Britain, controlling estates in central London that have not left the family since the 17th century. The Grosvenor surname is one of the shortest documented lines running straight from the muddy fields of the Norman invasion into the modern peerage of England. If your name is Grosvenor, your bloodline carries the mark of the great huntsman who rode with the conqueror himself. Number 14. Talbot. The Talbots produced one of the most feared knights of the 100 Years' War. John Talbot, 1st Earl of Shrewsbury, killed leading the last English cavalry charge at the Battle of Castillon in 1453. Shakespeare himself put him on the stage as the terror of the French armies. But the Talbot line reaches back 3 centuries before Shrewsbury. A Geoffrey Talbot appears in the records of the reign of King Stephen in the 1130s as a rebel baron, with lands around Swanscombe in Kent. By 1276, Gilbert Talbot was summoned to Parliament as the first Baron Talbot, and his descendants rose to the earldom of Shrewsbury, producing generation after generation of knights and marcher lords along the Welsh border. The Talbot line is documented in unbroken baronial succession in Cocaine's Complete Peerage, the standard reference of English medieval nobility, from the 12th century into the modern age. If your name is Talbot, your bloodline carries the standard of the knights who broke French armies on the fields of Agincourt, Verneuil, and Castillon. Number 13. Clifford. The name Clifford comes from a stone fortress on the River Wye in Herefordshire, raised in the wake of the Norman Conquest by a Norman marcher lord named Walter Fitz-Richard. Within a generation, he had dropped his father's patronymic and taken the name of his greatest holding, de Clifford. Walter de Clifford served King Henry II in the wild borderlands between England and Wales, and his daughter Rosamund became the king's mistress, the woman English ballads have called Fair Rosamund for 800 years. Her name is carved into the stones of Godstow Abbey, outside Oxford, and into the poems of Samuel Daniel and Alfred Lord Tennyson. And legend has it that Queen Eleanor of Aquitaine herself poisoned Rosamund in a jealous rage inside a labyrinth at Woodstock Palace. The Cliffords held the Welsh border for generations as marcher barons, later as Lords Clifford of Chudley and Lords Clifford of Cumberland, and the family is recorded in continuous male line in Cocaine's Complete Peerage. The barony of Clifford of Chudley, created in 1672, remains unbroken to this day. If your name is Clifford, your bloodline carries the blood of the marcher lord who watched the Welsh border for the crown. Number 12. Mortimer. Few families came closer to seizing the English crown than the Mortimers. The line begins with a Norman knight, Roger de Mortimer, who fought at the Battle of Mortimer in 1054 in his own family castle in Normandy, giving his name to the fight itself. His descendants crossed to England after the conquest and seized the Marcher lordship of Wigmore in Herefordshire, raising one of the most formidable castles on the Welsh border. Ranulph de Mortimer appears in the Domesday Book of 1086 as Lord of Wigmore. From that hilltop, the Mortimers rose to become Earls of March, the most dangerous rivals to the Plantagenet crown. Roger Mortimer, 1st Earl of March, deposed King Edward II in 1327 and ruled England in all but name for 4 years alongside Queen Isabella. Through his descendant Anne Mortimer, the family's blood flowed into the House of York and passed to King Edward IV himself. If your name is Mortimer, your bloodline carries the ambition of the Marcher Earls, who nearly took the throne of England. Number 11. Beaumont. Roger de Beaumont was one of the closest men in the world to William the Conqueror. Born around 1015 in Normandy, Roger held the lordship of Beaumont-le-Roger and served as one of the Conqueror's chief advisors. The Norman monk chronicler, Orderic Vitalis, records that Roger was considered too old to fight at Hastings in 1066, so William left him behind in Normandy to serve as counselor to Duchess Matilda. He was, according to the medieval genealogies preserved by Robert of Turingi, a second cousin once removed of William himself, descended from the same house as Duchess Gunnar, the matriarch of the ducal family of Normandy. His sons crossed the Channel after the victory and were rewarded with 2 of the greatest English earldoms. His son Henry became the 1st Earl of Warwick. His son Robert became the 1st Earl of Leicester. For 200 years, the House of Beaumont sat at the center of Anglo-Norman power. If your name is Beaumont, your bloodline carries the counsel of the man who stood at the Conqueror's right hand. Number 10. Sinclair. The Sinclairs came to Scotland by way of Normandy, and before that, according to their own ancient chronicles, by way of the Viking sea kings of Denmark. The family took its name from the town of St. Clair-sur-Lelle in the Marche region of Normandy. By the year 1160, a Sinclair family already held the barony of Herdmanston in East Lothian, making them the earliest documented Sinclair line in Scotland. 2 centuries later, the Sinclairs became Earls of Orkney, Barons of Roslin, and Earls of Caithness, the family that raised the carved walls of Roslin Chapel in the 1440s under Prince William Sinclair, the last Norse Earl of Orkney and one of the greatest patrons of Scottish medieval architecture. The Sinclair Dinna study, launched in 2004 at Family Tree Dinna, and today one of the largest continuously running Y-chromosome family projects in the world, has now identified more than 14 distinct Sinclair male lineages. The 2 oldest of them, the Herdmanston Sinclair line and the Orkney and Caithness line, both trace their earliest defining snip markers to noble Sinclair ancestors of the 15th century. If your name is Sinclair, your bloodline carries the blood of the Sea Kings who once ruled the Northern Isles. Number 9. Warenne. The moment William the Conqueror stepped ashore at Pevensey Bay in 1066, one of the young men beside him was William de Warenne. Within 20 years, he was the 4th richest man in England, holding the largest concentration of manors of any noble not related to the royal family. He was created the 1st Earl of Surrey by William Rufus in 1088. Warenne took his name from the little river Varenne in the Norman Pays de Caux. The chronicler Robert of Turingi recorded that his mother Beatrix was a niece of Duchess Gunnar of Normandy, giving William de Warenne blood ties directly to the ducal house of Rollo the Viking, the founder of Normandy itself. His descendants held the earldom of Surrey for 7 generations, married into the royal houses of both England and Scotland, and raised the massive stone keep at Lewes Priory in Sussex, where William de Warenne himself was buried in 1088. The Warenne surname today is one of the most common Norman-derived family names in the entire English-speaking world. If your name is Warenne, Your bloodline carries the DNA of the men who came ashore with the conqueror. Number 8. Howard. The Howards are the premier ducal family of all England. For more than 500 years, the head of the family has held the title of Duke of Norfolk and the hereditary office of Earl Marshal of England. The man who personally organizes the coronation of every English monarch. The dukedom in its current form was created in 1483 by King Richard III, but the Howard ancestors reach back generations earlier, through William Howard, a judge of the Court of Common Pleas in the reign of King Edward I at the end of the 13th century. When Thomas Howard, 3rd Duke of Norfolk, arranged the marriages of his two nieces, Anne Boleyn and Catherine Howard, to King Henry VIII, the family sat at the very heart of Tudor power. The Howard Wide Na project, hosted at Family Tree de Na, is now one of the largest single surname Y-chromosome projects in the world, and confirms deep clustering of the noble Howard line under an ancient Norman-era haplogroup. If your name is Howard, your bloodline carries the blood of the Earl Marshal himself. If you have made it this far into the countdown, hit subscribe right now, because the next 7 names on this list carry blood that once ruled entire kingdoms, islands, and border wars. And number 1 is a surname whose royal DNA has been confirmed in a living English duke. Number 7. Percy. There is a reason Shakespeare made the Percys the great rebels of English history. The real story is more dangerous still. The line was founded by William de Percy, who crossed the Channel to England in December of 1067, 1 year after the conquest itself. He took his name from Percy en Auge, a village in Normandy, and he was rewarded with vast Yorkshire estates recorded in the Domesday Book of 1086, holdings so large that he was rebuilding York Castle by 1070. His descendants rose to become Earls of Northumberland, and finally Dukes of Northumberland, the greatest single landholding house in all of northern England. For 400 years, the Percys ruled the borderlands with Scotland as princes in their own right. Their most famous son, Sir Henry Percy, called Hotspur, became one of the great warrior figures of medieval England, killed leading a rebellion against King Henry IV at the Battle of Shrewsbury in 1403. Immortalized soon after in the pages of Holinshed's Chronicles, and later in Shakespeare's Henry IV. The Percy male line still runs through the medieval stone walls of Alnwick Castle in Northumberland to this day. If your name is Percy, your bloodline carries the blood of the men who ruled the North as kings. Number 6. Neville. The Nevilles produced the single most feared political operator in medieval England. Richard Neville, 16th Earl of Warwick, called the Kingmaker, put King Edward IV on the throne of England in 1461, then removed him again in 1470 and set up King Henry VI in his place. His cousin Cecily Neville, called the Rose of Raby, was mother to 2 kings of England, Edward IV and Richard III. Cecily's granddaughter, Elizabeth of York, became the mother of the Tudor dynasty itself, meaning every English and British monarch since 1485 carries Neville blood in their veins. And the Neville male line is even older than the Norman Conquest. The medieval genealogies preserved in Cocaine's complete peerage record that the Nevilles descended in the male line from a native pre-conquest ancestor named Uhtred, part of the old Anglo-Saxon aristocracy of Northumbria. If your name is Neville, your bloodline carries the blood of the man who made and unmade the kings of England. Number 5. Fitzgerald. The Fitzgeralds are the great Norman-Welsh dynasty of Ireland, and their story begins in the bedchamber of a Welsh princess. Gerald of Windsor, a Norman constable of Pembroke Castle in Wales, married Nestfurch Rhys, daughter of Rhys ap Tudor, the last independent prince of South Wales, killed in battle by the Normans in 1093. Their sons crossed the Irish Sea in 1169 with Strongbow, the Earl of Pembroke, and carved out the Norman colony of Ireland with Sword and Grant. Their descendants became the Earls of Kildare and the Earls of Desmond, and by the reign of King Edward IV, Garret Mr. Fitzgerald, the 8th Earl of Kildare, was called by contemporary chroniclers the uncrowned King of Ireland, ruling as Lord Deputy for 40 turbulent years and holding armed forces larger than the English crown itself could muster on the island. The Fitzgerald Project has documented multiple noble Cambro-Norman male lineages tracing to the 12th century. And through Nest Furch Rees, the entire dynasty carries the blood of the ancient Welsh royal house of Dynefer. If your name is Fitzgerald, your bloodline carries the blood of the last free princes of Wales and the uncrowned King of Ireland. Number 4. Campbell. The Campbells are among the most dominant clans in Scottish history. From the Dukes of Argyll came military commanders, king's councillors, and the men who broke the Jacobite risings on the field of Culloden. But the Campbell story reaches far deeper than the Highlands. The Campbell chiefs of Argyll descend from Sir Duncan Campbell, First Lord Campbell, who died in 1453, and behind him from the 13th century Highland warrior, known as Caerleon Mr. Caimbool. In a 2023 genetic study by Alistair MacDonald and Graham Holton at the University of Strathclyde, the distinct Y-chromosome signature of the Campbells of Glenorchy was isolated and traced back through the male line to the 13th century. And in the earlier Trinity College Dublin study led by Professor Dan Bradley, the UNIL M222 marker, tied to the 5th century Irish High King Niall of the Nine Hostages, appears at meaningful frequency in Scottish Campbell samples with roots on the Argyll coast. If your name is Campbell, your bloodline carries the blood of the clan that dominated the Western Highlands for 800 years. Number 3. MacDonald, Somerled, Lord of Argyll and King of the Hebrides, may be the single most genetically documented medieval ruler in the entire British Isles. In 2005, Professor Brian Sykes of Oxford University and his researcher Jane Nicholson tested thousands of Highland men and discovered a distinct Y-chromosome pattern shared by MacDonalds, MacDougalls, and McAllisters, the three great clans that trace their descent to Somerled's sons. The Dina is haplogroup R1A1, the Norse Viking signature, precisely fitting Somerled's known descent from the Viking sea kings of the Isles who drove out earlier Norse raiders in the 12th century. The Clan Donald Dina project, now more than 20 years old, and with over 3,600 participants worldwide, has confirmed that the living clan chiefs of Sleat, Clanranald, and Glengarry all carry the same specific haplogroup, tied to Somerled through his grandson Donald, the man who gave the entire clan its name in the 13th century. If your name is MacDonald, MacDougall, or McAllister, your bloodline carries the Dina of the Sea Kings who ruled the Western Isles. Number 2. Bruce. In February of 2022, Graham Holton of the University of Strathclyde announced a discovery that Scottish genealogists had been chasing for decades. A specific Y-chromosome marker, designated FTB 15831, had been isolated in two independent living male line descendants of the Bruces of Clackmannan, a family that a royal Scottish charter of 1365, preserved in the Register of the Great Seal, describes in Latin as dilecto et fideli nostro consanguineo, meaning our beloved and faithful kinsman of King David II. According to the Strathclyde team, that marker was almost certainly carried by King Robert the Bruce himself. The Bruce line originated in Normandy with Robert de Bruce, a Norman lord who crossed to England around 1100 and founded Gisborough Priory in Yorkshire in 1119. His descendants were granted the lordship of Annandale by King David I of Scotland, and rose over 6 generations to seize the Scottish crown itself at the Battle of Bannockburn on the 24th of June, 1314, where Robert the Bruce famously split the skull of the English knight Henry de Bohun with a single blow of his battle-axe before the fighting even began. If your name is Bruce, your bloodline carries the Dina of the King of Scots who broke the English at Bannockburn. Number 1. Stewart. No British surname has been genetically documented at the depth of the House of Stewart. The line begins in Brittany in the 11th century with a Breton knight named Alan Fitzflaud, who crossed to England in Norman service around 1100. His son Walter became the first High Steward of Scotland under King David I, and the office of Steward gave the family its name. From Walter descended Robert II, who took the crown of Scotland in 1371. And from Robert descended 6 kings of Scots, and eventually King James VI of Scotland and First of England, who united the 2 crowns in 1603. The Stewart Royal DNA Project, tied into the Bannockburn Genetic Genealogy Project run in partnership with the University of Strathclyde, has published the confirmed royal Stewart Y-chromosome signature. It is haplogroup R1b-L21, defined by the specific SNP mutations L744, L745, and L746. Richard Scott, the 10th Duke of Buccleuch, a direct male line descendant of King Charles II, tested positive for this exact signature. If your name is Stewart or Stewart, your bloodline carries the DNA of the kings who ruled both Scotland and England. If your name is Stewart or Stewart, tell us in the comments right now, and tell us which name on this list came closest to your own family surname. Then subscribe, because the next royal bloodline we uncover may be the one still hiding inside your own name.